pretty sure my wheels have been wobbling. That's what somebody said when they were driving behind me the other day in traffic. Only way to find out, let's get it up in the air and spin some wheels. Ready? So I'm gonna have cousin Paul jump in the black car. We're gonna spin the wheels. We got an axle build going on right now. We might have had to accelerate the build now to get this done, because obviously if we got a bent axle, that's not good. So he's gonna put it in gear and we're gonna see. It's just first gear and spin it. That's tired. That might be axle, I don't know. Y'all see that? Let me see the other side. Go ahead, give it some gas. That tire wood, boy. I don't think I got a bent axle at all. This is that budget 400 horsepower axle we did on the channel. If you're trying to make 400 horsepower or more on a big inch Windsor or stroker build with your fox body, or even with a little small turbo build, one thing you definitely want to have upgraded is your axle. We've been talking about that here on the channel. So we got to get this thing finished up so we can get back into our burnouts and doing maybe a little bit of, I don't know, streetcar fun 1/8 mile stuff, 1/4 mile stuff, whatever. But that definitely is whooped. You know, I checked the torque on the wheels, and that's a common issue with axles when they start to bend and twist and whatever. And you could bend the 3-inch wheel studs. And these are Morosos, and most of these are junk. I don't ever use those anymore. You know, we've put really, really good torque and horsepower to these 100 7703s, and that's the fix to that. And that's pretty much what we're doing here in the channel today. We're gonna set this axle up on a solid shim, and we're gonna get it ready to get back in the black car. So we're gathering all our parts and we're pretty much ready to go. We got to put some axle studs in, but one thing I wanted to show you, see the line on the pinion flange here? That's where the seal used to ride. And what happens is these things get pretty wore out and you don't want to put that back on. It just falls on. That's not going to seal very well. So I go ahead and start putting our new axle studs in, use the impact, set them all up. Obviously, the best way to do it is to press them in, but you can use a impact. I've done that for years, not a problem. Now we'll do the other. Okay, we got all 10 of them on. We just use the impact and a bunch of stacks of washers. And you kind of alternate the washers because they all get hot. I got a couple 10.9 lug nuts that I use backwards. We also made up a new flange. That seal would have leaked on the old one. It's kind of a rudimentary way of looking at it. Look at that junk. Every one of these are bent. Okay, so what we're planning on doing is actually replacing this old crush sleeve with a solid shim. That way we can just install the pinion and pretty much just lock it down. So it looks like our factory crush sleeve that came out of it was 437 thou. So that's what we're gonna actually try to replicate. It's just a shim you get in one of the kits. It should come with the solid one, which should be 413. Comes with a bunch of smaller shims that you can just kind of shim it up. But, you know, we're just setting it up here real quick because we're gonna spin through and unload all this stuff, grease everything up, lube everything up. I think that'll give us the backlash because we just used a bigger factory one that was about 15 thou bigger. So we ended up putting a little 5 thou shim. So we have exactly the backlash that we want, about 8 thou. You can almost hear it too. So now that we got everything measured out and we got the pinion depth where you want it and the solid shim seems to be working, we're gonna take everything back apart. We're gonna clean it real quick, lubricate everything. We got the axle all set up on the technical end of it, measuring the solid shim. We're gonna actually put that in another video for us to share here on the channel. We're just gonna focus on getting the axle back together, install what we had in it with the sphericals as well from Team Z. These are really easy to install. So by the end of the video, we're gonna have this whole axle finished, and I'll just briefly talk about some of the things that we did, lubricate up some parts like I just talked about, get it slammed together. This sort of axle right here should have no problem handling about 750 horsepower, differential from the Explorer that had been rebuilt. We did that in another video. Let's get this thing together and we'll talk more about the parts that are in it. So I bought this inch-pound tool and we have already measured it to be right at like 26, which is a pretty good scenario there. So we're gonna rip this back apart, take the pinion nut off, put a new one on. We put the new seal on already in the last video. We got this little oil catcher in front of the bearing here, so make sure that's nice and seated straight up and down. We're gonna lubricate the pinion and put it right back in. So now we have our new pinion nut. As you can see, it's a bunch of thread lock in this, and it's actually like an oblong or torsion nut. I think that's what they call them. But you don't want to use it for when you're setting up the original, like when you're setting up for the measurements, you're just gonna want to use the old stuff that you have. What that solid shim does. It's not like a crush sleeve where you got to use 150 pounds of torque to get it to start crushing. And we actually made a readjustment to our pinion nut. Got some good drag on it now. We added 3 thou shim to the crush sleeve because it seemed like the inch pound was way too tight. So it's rated at about 22 right now. So let's get it flipped back over here, putting the diff back in. And in the other video, we did a pattern check. We ended up shimming it and we brought the pattern up. In this video, we'll just get this axle together and then I'll double back and do the crush sleeve eliminator and the pattern. Kind of more of a boring video, kind of like this one. I don't know. Let's get it together. Gonna stick our little Team Z sphericals in. Now we could run with the rubber mounts, much like you have here. You can get these pretty cheap. You don't have to do these spherical ones. Here's the actual part number for it. They fit in pretty easy. Just tap them in. Little spot of blue Loctite on it, just to help. I don't have a wrench big enough, so I have to use these things. So we're gonna stick a zip tie through these so they don't fall out. We've done a lot of work on this axle to brace it up. These are 31 spline aftermarket axles, and these are a C-clip style axle, but we converted it to a C-clip eliminator. Basically, this keeps the axle from falling out, and this becomes the bearing and the race and everything and kind of holds it in place. This has to be pressed on. You're supposed to cut this off when you convert a C-clip axle to a non-C-clip or eliminated style, but we just left it on. We've already modified our flanges at the end. We're gonna stick our drum brakes back on it because that's what we used to run with this car. This is the type of upgrade you're looking for. 31 spline, whether it's an Explorer diff or a spool like we used to have in the car, C-clip eliminators, axles don't come flying out. Obviously the rear drums aren't sought after, but if you run into a rear disc conversion from the junkyard like we talk about here on the channel, a lot of good stuff went into this axle for our rebuild for our black car, and we plan on utilizing. We'll get this into the black car. We still got to put brake lines on, but we'll just take it off the other axles. They're already kind of pre-fit. But if you guys enjoy this sort of content, leave me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't. Leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think. Check out that join button below. Become a member of the channel. Get exclusive content to the channel. Outside of that, neomustangs.com. Check out some hats and t-shirts. We'll see you soon in the next video. Thanks for watching.